Hey everyone, Ryan Flugaur here with the National Association for Gun Rights coming to you with great news out of Colorado and Federal District Court. I'm here with Taylor Rhodes, who is the Executive Director from Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. And before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can follow this case and all the other legal cases we've got going on, both in Colorado and nationwide. Taylor, what happened in Colorado yesterday?
So, as you mentioned, we are in the communist state of Colorado where frankly, winning on the gun issue for a long time has been almost impossible. This last legislative session, we saw a bill package of 6 bills. All but one was passed into law. We were able to defeat the assault weapons ban here at the state level. And before the ink was dry on 2 of the other bills, we filed lawsuits against. That was Senate Bill 168 and House Bill 1219. Yesterday, a federal judge, a George Bush appointee, granted us a preliminary injunction against the age restrictions. This is a 18 to 20-year-old gun ban. Mm-hmm. Now remember, why are these preliminary injunctions so important? They're frankly important because this gives a stand-up area that the judge essentially says you have a likelihood of success on the merits. And even better in our case, most preliminary injunctions are only a few pages long. In our case, we have a 44-page preliminary injunction.
So that means the judge really put some thought into that. He did his research now, so we kind of know what direction this is taken.
Right. So we've actually instructed our attorneys to file a motion to make that preliminary injunction a permanent injunction, which would strike the law down completely. So right now, we're in the fight of our lives here in Colorado, and we got a huge gun rights win, but we need your help. We need you to like that button in the video, donate to the legal funds, because frankly, this win doesn't just help us here in Colorado. We've seen cases like this out of a Republican state of Florida. We've seen this out of Maryland, where they actually struck down not only their long gun prohibitors, but their handgun prohibitors as well.
Yeah, 421.
And in your home state of Minnesota, they struck down this bill. So we're winning on this issue around the country. And so ultimately, we believe that someone is likely going to end up in the Supreme Court over this, just because of how contentious it has been around the country. And it's very likely that the Supreme Court could step in and say, hey, we're just going to go ahead and rule for everyone because there are so many cases going on around the country.
Yeah, I think there was one out of Texas also. I mean, really since the Bruen decision, NYSPRA v. Bruen last year's Supreme Court decision, which it was kind of this reset for the courts. They now have to go back and look at the text, history, and tradition of any gun control law and justify it before they'll even accept it.
Right. So, well, the key of that is they removed what's called intermediate scrutiny. No, I'm not an attorney, and I don't play one on TV.
It's this two-step process, right?
It's this two-step process, which essentially means this is a made-up example, but you could say, this classification of weapons within this age group is dangerous. We can ban it. Well, that's no longer the case. So now it only goes on the first 50 years of our founding and text, history, and tradition. And really where we won this case is it was a hard case for them to make that it didn't fall within that text, history, and tradition, because not only was it legal for you to own firearms. In a lot of cases, it was required.
Yeah, especially during the colonial era, where the average age of a Minuteman was probably pretty young.
Yeah, well, we estimate between the ages of 13 and 21.
Yeah.
So you're talking about literal kids that fought for our freedom. And now they're saying, well, that never happened. I encourage them to read a history book or read the Federalist Papers or a document from that time and understand. Our Second Amendment rights are not about hunting.
No, they're not.
They're not about, really they're not even about protecting ourselves in our home. It's about protecting ourselves against a tyrannical government. And people ask me every day, Taylor, why do you need an AR-15? And I tell them, well, I don't. I need an A-10 Warthog.
Yeah.
But we're working on that.
So now this is part of RMGO's cases. You got several cases going on in Colorado that are similar. NAGR and FGR, we've also been pitching in Colorado. It's part of our national effort to do the same thing nationwide, especially with the assault weapons ban. We're fighting to overturn those, I think,
Right.
now half of the nation's appellate court
Right.
circuits. But tell me, now that we got this ruling, what's next for this ruling? Are they going to appeal it further to the Supreme Court? What's on the horizon for it?
So we don't think that they're going to appeal, although they could. Obviously, like I just said, we're going to file that motion for a permanent injunction, and if that's not granted, we're going to duke it out with them in the courts. You know, it's only because of the generosity of RMGO and NAGR members that we were able to make this happen.
Sure.
And frankly, these cases are building upon each other, not just here in Colorado, as I mentioned earlier. These have a national repercussion. So if you're sitting in Texas or Arizona and you're saying, well, what does this have to do with me? It has a lot to do with you, because right now, pro-gun groups like Rocky Mountain Gun Owners and the National Association for Gun Rights and the National Foundation for Gun Rights are really rewriting the landscape of the Second Amendment, and that is why it's so important that you're involved in these fights.
All right, Taylor. So tell me a little bit about the not just this case, but the other cases you have going in Colorado, and how they might also have the same kind of nationwide impact that this case is having.
Right. So we now have 4 cases in federal district court. We have the age restrictions. We have waiting periods where Colorado passed a minimum of a 3-day waiting period, meaning they could stretch that out for 14, 21, 36, 365 days if they so choose, by law or by rule, as we've seen the ATF do with rules on things like pistol braces. Okay. They could implement a certain thing like that. We're also fighting against the 2013 mag ban, where we've refiled in federal court along with the National Foundation for Gun Rights. And then on top of that, we are suing the town of Louisville, Superior, Boulder, and Boulder County. Now, if you don't know about Boulder, Colorado, Boulder is the San Francisco of Colorado. It is where all good things go to die. And
25 miles of insanity there.
It is 25 miles of insanity, and we're fighting back against their gun control schemes. So what we're doing here in Colorado, while you may live, a million miles away, what we're doing here can set precedent, even though it may not be binding for your state. It can set precedent that you could use, say, if in your state passes an assault weapons ban, or if your state passes age restrictions, which really on the waiting period bill, aside from California's, which was only loosely argued, there really hasn't been a case like this in the country. So we're paving new ground.
Yeah, you're paving new ground. I think you said something earlier that was very important, too, with regards to how the ATF and other agencies, both not just federal but also state agencies, might be interpreting some of these statutes and laws that are passed by the legislature, reinterpreting them to shape their mold of whatever gun control they want to push forward.
Right.
What we're building right here with this case is case law that can be used against any of those laws across the country in a post-Bruin world.
Right.
So I think that's very unique and interesting.
Right, and that's ultimately why it's so important to be a part of groups like Rocky Mountain Gun Owners and National Association for Gun Rights. So again, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to this video, and feel free to leave a comment and tell me how goofy I look on camera. Thanks so much. Until next time.
Appreciate it, Taylor. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.